everyone, welcome back to Strawberry Podfics. This is It's a Small World by Emphasis on Ghostwriter. Chapter 5, Entrance Exam Reactions. Hizashi. It was a good thing Recovery Girl and her staff were on site to take care of injuries after the practical exams, because Hizashi was about to have a heart attack at the ripe old age of 35. As it was taking every trick Hizashi knew to keep himself in the moment and in his present mic persona. The green bean from earlier had zoomed into the mock city this exam site was before the gate had even finished opening once they'd announced the start of the exam, leaving everyone else in the dust. He'd proceeded to quickly find what was supposed to be an on-off button for the robots to help showcase both intelligence and intelligence quirks, and just as quickly find how the button turned them off. The shocked face he'd made had been hilarious too. Hizashi hadn't expected the kid to ask a pink girl with what looked like some sort of corrosive or acid quirk for help procuring a makeshift weapon, and he really hadn't been expecting the absolute zeal the kid started attacking robots with. Or the unmistakably familiar and absolutely feral smile he wore as he left smoldering machine parts in his wake. That terrifying grin was 100%, without a doubt, no question in their mind, copied directly from a Shota that was especially enjoying taking down someone particularly scummy. Midoriya Izuku was their son. He didn't care that the boy wasn't part of their household yet. The green-haired kid down there was their son, and he was here taking the exam. So he'd so very much hoped that the kid would be, and Hizashi was just beside himself, an array of emotions. And he couldn't even keep his eyes on the kid because he was one of the heroes for this site, keeping an eye on everyone. This was the worst. If he'd figured it out, Shota had definitely figured it out. He'd have to content himself with the play-by-play his husband would no doubt have later and watching the video footage of the exam. For now, he had a job to do. Although they'd be having words with Nezu later for not stopping the robot earlier after he'd almost watched their son they just found get run over by the zero-pointer. Many, many words. Aizawa. The tired hero had always had a love-hate relationship with Ghost's helmet. It was much better quality than any kid should have access to, especially considering the voice modulation and gas mask equipment hidden inside it, and it kept him from being able to read the Vigilante's face to make sure he wasn't hiding any injuries. But it had also kept his kid wonderfully, beautifully alive on more than one occasion, or at least a succession of them had. Ghost was smart enough not to continue using compromised equipment, even if that was both more concerning as to where and how the kid was acquiring them, than the kid always bemoaned losing that helmet's collection of stickers. Right now, though, he was leaning closer to the hate side of the scale, because it had kept him from realizing that at some point along the way, Ghost had picked up Shota's very own feral problem child grin. He was also being forced to reckon with that terrifying realization while surrounded by his fellow teachers, so he couldn't actually react in any meaningful way. He'd have to get Nezu a Father of the Year mug for the way he kept subtly rubbing Shota's arm in the soothing motion that helped keep him grounded best. Also, for the fact he'd have no problem getting Shota a screenshot of the surprised face Midoriya had when that first robot exploded on him. He'd also taken that information and run with it with zero hesitation while also pulling other kids out of danger. Shota was so proud. They'd still be having a conversation about pressing buttons on unknown enemy technology, but he was proud. That was his vigilante, after all. Holy shit, Midoriya Izuku. His son's name was Midoriya Izuku. Holy shit. It fit him surprisingly well, with that hair and those eyes. Also, his son was definitely part cat. Shota had won the lottery. He was never going to live down the fact he hadn't known. Still worth it. The uncharacteristically disjointed and shocked train of thought, sue him, he finally had the confirmation he'd wanted for years, combined with the rat's soothing ministrations, brought Shota back to himself enough to start paying attention to the other teachers around him again. Just in time for them to also notice the kid's feral ferocity, trained professionals balking at the sight of one 14-year-old with a metal stick and chaotic grin. This was the best day. The green kid with the stick's really going hard there. Who is that? Snipe asked. That, my dear teachers, is Midoriya Izuku, Nezu announced, clearly enjoying the chaos unfolding both on screen and in the control room. What? Excuse me? The kid from earlier? A cacophony of voices rang out, one shocked voice melding into another to the point that he couldn't tell who was asking what. Indeed, Nezu grinned, eyes ranging over the assembled pros. Kami, Shota could hear someone whisper. He thought it was Cementos, whispering under his breath. What's his quirk? Khan asked. Is it related to the ears? Transformation? Not at all. The principal's smile grew wider, and a touch more animalistic, causing a shiver to run over most present. That smile was a portent of the rat's machinations soon to follow, and they knew better than to ignore it. His feline traits are simply a mutation that runs in his family. No, young Midoriya is quirkless. I'm quite certain he'll take the hero world by storm once he graduates. Graduates? Yagi Toshinori, in his small form, questioned. Surely you can't be serious. What do you mean, Yagi? Nezu questioned back, quizzical head tilted. What do you mean, Yagi? Nezu questioned back, quizzical head tilt replacing the smile. If he's really quirkless like you say he is, he'd never make it as a hero. We'd be as good as signing his death certificate if you were allowed in. The newest member of staff, he had no teaching degree or experience, and the rest of the actual teachers were going to be picking up his slack all year. So he was staff, and certainly not part of any we that currently mattered. He wasn't even grading, he just wanted to observe today, clarified. The silence following that statement would have rung if it hadn't been for the audio echoing from the monitors. Yagi didn't seem to realize the ice in it was directed towards him as people glanced between him and Shota, knowing he was usually the first response to statements like that. They only got more nervous when he just stared at the monitor in front of him. Shota was too busy counting his breaths in an attempt to calm himself from the murderous rage coursing through his bloodstream to say anything. Was it an extreme reaction? Probably, but he more than anyone else present knew what that kid had gone through and how hard he had worked to get where he was. The thought of someone just discounting that out of hand set his blood on fire. And that's before you get into how quirks are just tools that some decent support gear could more than make up for in the right hands. Unbeknownst to him, Nemuri, sitting behind him, was concerned. She wasn't sure what was happening, but she knew Shota well. He had known him since their high school days, and had been weirder than normal. I'm going to redo that sentence. She wasn't quite sure what was happening, but she knew Shota well, and had known him since their high school years. I messed up again. I'm going to redo that sentence again. Nemuri, sitting behind him, was concerned. She wasn't... Oh, I redid too much. Whoops. She wasn't quite sure what was happening, but she knew Shota well, had known him since their high school days, and he'd been weirder than normal, for him, all day. Especially if he was willing to allow someone to ground him the way Nezu was doing in public, even if her position blocked anyone else from noticing. He might be in tune with, and comfortable expressing his emotions in private, something that tended to happen to anyone in Hizashi's orbit, but he remained closed off and stoic, red, tired, and grumpy, in public. Something about not wanting to give away information that could be used against him, and that could be used against him once an underground pro, always an underground pro. Then Shota turned around to level Yagi with a terrifying, especially since it wasn't quirked, glare. I'm gonna pause real quick. Okay, I'm back. I had to take a call. What do you mean he'd never make it as a hero? He asked, low, voice cold, smooth as silk and far too collected. For one wild moment, Nemuri wondered what would happen if she had to gas the entire room to stop Shota from murdering Japan's #1 hero. Well, he can't he? Yagi muttered awkwardly, pitiful survival instincts finally sensing the danger he'd put himself in. How is he supposed to defend himself, much less anyone else? It'd be a recipe for disaster. Shota just stared at the blonde man for a second before responding. You realize a lot of heroes fight quirkless, right? My quirk only levels the playing field, and even that's assuming I'm not dealing with someone with a mutation quirk. Zashi's quirk is too strong to use unless they're specifically called in for something more often than not. Hell, wasn't Night Eye your sidekick? His quirk is non-physical and only works once a day. He took a breath, using it to calm himself. Well, yes, but that's... Don't you dare say that's different, Shota steamrolled him. Are we not seeing the same thing? That kid is kicking ass as well as rescuing anyone he sees that needs it. He's going to be one of the top scorers, if not the top scorer. And if he's quirkless, he's had to fight 3, if not 4 times as hard as anyone else in that arena just to get to this exam. He deserves his spot in this course. Who the hell are you? And his tone on that word might have been a bit too pointed, but he didn't care. Yagi wasn't even a teacher, so why did he think he got a say in this? To deny him that. As long as he's not in my class, Khan broke in, purposefully drawing everyone's attention and Shota's glare until he elaborated. Even if he is the top scorer, I'm not prepared to handle that kind of feral the way you are, Aizawa. I'll take the Pomeranian in Arena 3, though. A couple of soft snorts sounded as Khan successfully broke most of the tension. All right, fair enough, the dark-haired teacher huffed before turning back to the monitors. Nezu, when are the zeros getting released? Should be any second now, Shota-kun, Nezu chirped as the atmosphere in the room returned to normal when everyone turned back to the monitors. Sure enough, a few seconds later, the buzzer sounded, indicating the massive machines were being turned on and starting to move. Which is when his breath stuttered to a stop as Ghost, Izuku, his kid, ran forward to help a girl who'd gotten trapped in the rubble alongside who he was fairly sure was a Monoma. The Monomas were a large family, heavily involved in Hero Society. They'd all worked with and taught more than one, and proceeded to almost get pancaked under the treads of the building-sized robot. Why Nezu didn't stop the zero-pointer earlier, Shota would be finding out later. But thankfully, all 3 kids, moved out of the way in time. Finally able to breathe again, Shota slouched down in his seat as his husband called an end to the exam. Kami, he needed a nap. And that is it for this chapter. I'm bad at these. I'm bad at the outros. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye!